Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my sententious co-host, Chris Rasick. Today, we'll be weaving our way through arbitrage to wholesale to private label. We've got Eric with us, who you may know as the reselling teacher. He quit his job to go all in on Amazon, and he's made money using every single one of these methods and more. We're going to try to have him share with us how these can stack on each other and how you can kind of use each method to grow your business. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. We take several minutes to get ready for each episode. So if you get something out of this, do us a favor, hit the like button, hit subscribe wherever you might be listening, and drop a quick comment. The only way we can grow this show is by having you help us tickle the algorithms of each platform, and they want to see you interacting. And we'll, of course, bring on more guests and more episodes for you guys. All right, let's dive in. Eric, thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So always kind of like to set the table a little bit. And I'm curious, what got you into Amazon? And can you kind of give us a little backstory about your business?
Sure. I was teaching. I was a high school teacher and administrator for 20 years prior to Amazon. So I believe sometime around 2017, I was scrolling through social media, and a buddy of mine posted a inspirational video by Gary Vee, and I just clicked on the video, and I don't remember the context of the video, but I remember Gary Vee said something like, you can make money doing all kinds of different things. He's like, I know a guy that sells, that makes $100,000 a year selling used books on Amazon or something along those lines. He might have been talking about Reezy, I'm not sure. But I was just like, wait, what? Like, what did he just say? And I was like, so I went on like YouTube and I was like, selling books on Amazon. And I like saw all this content and I was just like that was the first time I'd even had any idea that there were third-party sellers. I just assumed Amazon sold everything. And I was an Amazon customer at that point. I just had no idea. And so I kind of started following that little rabbit trail, and I was just like, it just seemed like the coolest thing in the world. And I eventually stumbled onto some of Reezy's content where he's just like in a Goodwill, like just scanning books. And I'm like, is this real? Is this fake? And so I was like, well, I'm going to try it. And I downloaded probably Scoutly or whatever it was at the time, and started scanning some books in a local Goodwill. I scanned a book that said it was going to sell for $69, and it was like 25 cents. And I fumbled through an FBA shipment, found some more things, shipped it in, and things started selling. And it was like a needle, I hope it's not a crash expression, but it was like a needle in my veins. I was like, this is the coolest thing in the entire world. And so, I was basically doing a little bit of everything. Like I would go to garage sales and find things that I could flip on eBay. But I always knew that Amazon was kind of like the most consistent. I always knew that Amazon was kind of like where I wanted to land. But early on, I was flipping stuff all over the place. While I was teaching, I would sneak out on my planning period. I would run to like the local Big Lots and just like scan the shampoo aisles, or like, I was just like, I just fell in love with it. And then at the end of the 2017 school year, or somewhere in the 2017 school year, I was like, I got to go back to work. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to shop as much. I'm not going to be able to go to as many garage sales and estate sales. And that's when I kind of got into online arbitrage. So I would place orders at night so that when I got home from school, there would be inventory, ready to prep and ship when I got home. And so I kind of got into OA. At some point in there, I started selling leads lists because I hired a VA and I would have more leads than I could afford. And so I kind of started a small leads list group. And then at the end of the 2018 school year, my wife and I sat down and I was just like, look, I'm really burned out on teaching. I want to give this a go full time. And so at the end of the 2018 school year, I resigned and went all in. Uh, was doing primarily retail arbitrage. I was taking these massive shopping trips. I would leave Michigan. I would head down to like Nashville and over to like my brother's in Missouri, and then come up and just hit every store, every Walmart, Target, Meijer that I could find along the way. And then I would get home and I would prep it all, and then it would sell, and I'd be like, crap, like I got to do that all over again. And I was scanning in a Marshall's one day, and I just had this kind of realization. I was just like, all right, don't fool yourself here. Like, this is not a business. Like, this is your job. And as soon as you stop pushing that scanner, the whole thing shuts down. And so that's when I decided, like, okay, I need to start. Now, granted, even though this is a job, I don't own a business, I own a job. Way more satisfying and way more enjoyable than my previous job. So I was fine with that, because I'm not trying to belittle anybody that thinks they have a business and maybe they just have a job, but because I enjoyed it a lot more than my previous job. But in January 1st, 2019, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to figure out wholesale, because the chase is starting to lose its allure, and it's starting to burn me out a little bit. I want to be able to make a phone call when my units sell and say like, hey, can you send me another pallet, or, and so in 2019, I sat down, I was like, I'm going to figure out wholesale, even if I go backwards, even if the sales drop, I'm just going to try to build wholesale. And that's what I did. So in 2019, I went all in on wholesale. And then between 2019 and today, we primarily do wholesale. In there, we had a couple private label opportunities that just kind of fell into our laps. And so we've launched 2 private label brands since then, with expansion. We'll launch a few more brands and products in 2025. So that's kind of where we are today. It's primarily wholesale, very, very little arbitrage, unless there's just something. Every once in a while I get kind of pulled back into that. I'm like, oh, but the bolos, like, it's just, it's just too good to not do. But primarily wholesale and building out private label today.
What was the draw to wholesale rather than say hiring an employee or two and continuing doing retail arbitrage and things? I mean, because I would imagine back then you probably knew of like Kim and Perry and
Yeah,
other like retail arbitrage operations who have grown it into like a business.
sure.
I guess did you not want to manage, or was wholesale just that much more attractive?
I tried it, and I think the biggest mistake that I made in a lot of this Amazon journey was I never really took the time to build out systems and really clear kind of criteria. So I tried. I hired a buyer, 2 different buyers. One, when I was early on doing books, I hired a buyer, and just the logistics of shipping heavy boxes. Um, the mistake I made was I was having them shipped to me rather than just prep them and process them and ship them directly to Amazon. That never even occurred to me. But then the other part that was difficult, because I was still learning, and so like I would hand over the keys to this employee to scan and make decisions, and it was like, I could never really figure out a way to like transplant my brain into their brain. And so where they would, because even in the few years that I had learned, had been doing this, you could scan a product and you could look at it and you're like, okay, what does the Keep chart look like? Like, what does the price stability look like? And you would kind of make all these decisions pretty quickly. And there were always so many variables. So someone would send me a text, be like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, see how the brand is on the listing? Like, probably want to stay away from that, or they would send me another, this looks great. And I'm like, yeah, but if you go back to Keep it just a little bit, like there's this, or you look at the number of sellers, it's like going up. Well, we know the price is going to come down, so I could never figure out a way to like take that knowledge and like just transplant it either through training or a checklist. And I think I just didn't know how to systematize, a team of buyers. Because I saw, like you said, I saw people doing it at scale. I could never figure out how to do it. I wasn't smart enough, or I hadn't learned enough at the time.
Hey, Amazon sellers, are you tired of juggling multiple tools to manage your FBA business? Well, say goodbye to the chaos and hello to Boxum, the all-in-one software that streamlines your shipments, inventory, and profitability tracking in just a few clicks. With Boxum, you'll cut your shipment time in half, gain real-time insights into your business, and keep your inventory under control, all from one simple, intuitive dashboard. Don't waste time. Try Boxum today and take your Amazon FBA game to the next level. Check it out over at cleartheshelf.com/Boxum and start your 14-day free trial now.
And then, like I said, I started getting burned out on the chase. At first, those trips were fun and exhilarating. And then at some point they became like, oh, this is work. You know what I mean? Like this is, the new car scent had worn off and it was like, this is work.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to build a portfolio of products that I could just, order 120, sell 120, order 120, sell 120, and just, pick up the phone call or send an email to get, inventory. I quickly found out that was not the case either with wholesale. It's not as simple as I thought it was going to be. Many of the same challenges you face in the arbitrage space are, they're there in wholesale as well. Price tanking and multiple sellers coming on the listing. It wasn't the glamorous, easy business model that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. You still gotta put on your overalls to get into wholesale.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so we've covered the fact that you've done arbitrage, you've done wholesale, you've done some private label. Out of those three models, is there one that like is your favorite? Can you do that, or is it like children where you really can't say that?
Sure. I definitely think, if I'm being honest, which I think your listeners appreciate and want, if I were to do it all over again, I don't think I would. If I were to start today with the knowledge that I have, I would not do wholesale. At least I would not do the traditional model of renting it, getting a warehouse and a team of preppers and stuff like that. I would still maybe do some wholesale if I could find some suppliers that would prep, or it was inventory that I could just have directly shipped to Amazon. But I would not do the traditional wholesale model today. I think the best margins are in the people that are chasing the RA leads. And if you just know that my business is built upon non-sustainable inventory or unlikely to be replenishable inventory, and you understand that that's just part of it, I think the RA game is probably where the most, not the most money, but like there's a lot of opportunity there. Private label is becoming more enjoyable to me now that I kind of have fumbled through a couple different products, and we've kind of broken it down into like little steps. That today really excites me because I see, once my mindset kind of shifted, I see tons and tons of opportunities. I see gaps in Amazon all the time where like, I think there's lots of products to be, that have the potential to do well and be launched. So I would say of those three, private label, but if you're just starting, I think that arbitrage space is so good to learn how Amazon works. And it's pretty safe to do so as long as you're not racking up tons of credit card debt. It's a good, safe place to learn kind of how Amazon works. But I'm leaning towards the idea of walking into a Walmart today does not intrigue me at all. So I'm leaning towards private label is what excites me the most today.
Okay. Since you've done all of these, could you give maybe like the top two pros and cons for each model, and what your thoughts are on those?
Sure. I think on arbitrage that one of the top pros is the 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 margins. You can walk into a Walmart and find products that are discounted, clearanced, 10, $15 that are selling for 50, $60 on Amazon. Books, things like that. Great, great margin opportunities there. Um, the downside of the arbitrage model is if it's on sale in your Walmart, it's likely on sale at a lot of others. And if you found it, there's a good chance that I think at one point there were like 5,000 Walmarts in the United States. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but like there's a good chance that other sellers are finding that too. So you got to be pretty quick. Wholesale, the cons, obviously, as soon as you find a great deal, as soon as it sells, you're like, oh, I got to go find something else, Um, but wholesale, I think the pros are it is nice if you can find some good products and you can find a good supplier, that you're not chasing the inventory as often. You know what I mean? Most of the chasing you're doing can be done behind a computer or with a team of employees or virtual assistants or whatever. So if you can find good products, good suppliers, um, it's definitely more consistent. You can start to kind of build a portfolio of like pretty solid producing products. With RA and OA, you get the home runs, you get the base hits, you get the doubles, triples. I think in wholesale, you find a lot more consistent like singles and doubles. That's been my experience. The challenge of the wholesale, especially for the smaller, I would say the $1 to $3 million a year wholesale seller, the new placement fees and freight cost, it's gotten really, really challenging. Um, you really almost have to up your profit margin 50 cents to cover placement fees, or otherwise you're splitting up 4 pallets across 6 different fulfillment centers. And so it's like pick your poison, placement fees or 6 times the freight. You know what I mean? It's really challenging there. Um, and I feel like with wholesale, for the most part, it's just a matter of time before a bigger fish comes along and bullies you off the space, off the listing. You know what I mean? Because it's like I think Amazon is like the gold rush, or it's like fishing in a lake, and as soon as somebody sees somebody else catching fish, they're like, well, I'm going to go over there where the fish are. Like somebody yelled, Eureka, and you're like, oh, well, where's the gold? And so everybody's got the same tools. We're all buying probably from the same, couple hundred big suppliers. And I think it's just a matter of time before somebody bigger comes along and says, oh, I can get better pricing on this, or I'm closer to the ports, where I don't have to freight this to the Midwest. I can save a few dollars there. Um, so wholesale, I think, is becoming more and more challenging. Private label is a little, I don't know if riskier is the right word. Uh, there's just no guarantees. You can have a perfect launch, you can have a great idea. There's just no guarantees that your product is going to take off. And so that's challenging. But the upside is if it does take off, you can do very well. You own the brand, you own and a lot of people have had successful exits on their private label products, but you're not getting an exit in any of those other business models. Nobody's going to buy your arbitrage business. Nobody's likely going to buy your wholesale business unless you've got some kind of legacy account or um, exclusive deals, contracts with suppliers. Like nobody's going to buy that. So private label has the biggest upside, I think, long term in terms of exits. And so yeah, that's what I think today.
All right.
So I want to before I have questions on wholesale, but I wanted to ask you. We only briefly mentioned your 20 years as an educator,
Mhm.
and I I'm a big appreciator of educators. They've some of my favorite people have been some of my best teachers. But I'm curious, when you made the transition, so you have 20 years now. Teachers aren't vast majority of the time known as paid well. In my
Sure.
opinion, they're criminally underpaid, and I won't entertain anybody that doesn't agree with me.
Sure.
So you went from being a teacher to a profession or an industry that the hustle bros have taken as a vehicle for massive wealth, or at least that's how it's pitched, right?
Sure.
So now we talked before the show, so I know that you were a teacher. You taught business, so that's
Yeah.
obviously a bridge from one to the other. But we kind of we exist very close to capitalism, for lack of a better word. Was there a mindset shift, or were you taught business, so you just kicked it into gear? Can you talk about the mind frame going from a likely underpaid teacher to this inventory based business?
Yeah, I think for me, there weren't necessarily any like skills that I had gained in like undergraduate or teaching that I was like, oh, I'm going to apply these. I think the mindset shift came when I realized you can sell crap on the internet. Like it was just like what? Like there's so many opportunities here. Like you walk up to a garage sale and you like find something. Like you can look on eBay and look at the sold comparable sales to see exactly what this is selling for. I felt like I had gone into the casino and it was like I knew exactly which slot machines to play. Like I knew which ones were going to hit because I had these tools. It's like, oh, I can see here this sells a dozen times a month at $70 average. Like I felt like that was the shift I think that happened, was like this whole world of like arbitrage opportunities. Like once I saw one, I was like, I saw them everywhere. Um, so that was the probably the biggest shift. I don't think that I was really, I mean, I feel like being a teacher, I had naturally had some like problem solving skills, and it's just the nature of, you're just like, well, I can figure it out. And I think I had the confidence of like, um, maybe this sounds egotistical or arrogant, but like, I'm like, I've seen some of these other people on social media. I'm like, if that guy figured it out, like I can figure it out for sure. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this doesn't, it's not easy, I'm sure, but it's got to be pretty simple if there are people that, have been successful at it. Um, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. There was really nothing that was like, I'm a business teacher. I always had kind of an entrepreneurial, there was something in me that was like enjoyed, entrepreneurial. Even as a teacher, I had started my very first teaching side hustle was power washing decks and restaining decks in the summer. So me and buddies would sweat our tails off in the middle of summer, like because when you first start teaching, especially early on, like my first teaching contract was $26,000. Like that was my very first teaching, contract. Fortunately, Michigan pays their teachers a little better, but never got rich teaching. But so I power washed and restained decks, and then I got a vinyl plotter, and I was making vinyl decals and stickers and T-shirts. So I was always kind of fiddling with something. Invented not invented, right word, kind of came up with this unique idea for interactive T-shirts and kind of launched that, and never really went all in on any of my ideas. And then when I found third-party selling and flipping stuff, there was something that happened, something that clicked, and I'm like, this is what I've been looking for. And that's when I finally went all in. I'm like, I'm hooked, So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
So I've got a follow up. You said interactive T-shirts. Are we talking like the hypercolor T-shirts, from the 90s, or are we talking like wearing an electronic billboard type of T-shirt?
So I don't know so I came up with this idea in let's see, this would have been the early 2000s. Facebook, and I can't remember what other platform was popular at the time, but like they would have, like when you log into Facebook, it would be like today I'm feeling, and you could like write it in. I don't remember what platform it was. And there was one platform where you could kind of choose an emoji that kind of described you, like where you were feeling. And I was like, oh, we could do a shirt, like a mood shirt where you're like, today I'm feeling, and there's just a yellow shirt, like a yellow circle. And you like have a marker that you just kind of draw your emoji on or something like that. And so we went through this process of like testing out dozens of different vinyls and markers, and we finally got the combination. One of the ideas was like a heart, like a Zelda heart container shirt. So you've got all these like white hearts, and you've got a red marker, and so like okay, I'm 6 out of 7 heart containers full today, and then maybe by the end of the day you're like, all right, now I'm down to 2, just kind of gimmicky. And then we're like, well, we could put like games on these t-shirts, like interactive games. So like you're waiting in line at a restaurant, and like you've got a tic-tac-toe board on your back, or you've got a I can't remember what, the crossword puzzle, or like we just kind of came up with like all these different ideas, which were kind of fun. We created a brand called Eraser Tees, launched a website. We launched a bracket shirt where you could like fill out your March Madness bracket and like write it, so you were kind of like walking around, proudly proclaiming like, hey, this is my bracket. Um, Again, I think it was one of those things that uh, I just didn't have the knowledge to follow through, or I didn't have the self-confidence to follow through, or the inner belief, like, um, and I mean, it definitely had some potential at the time based upon where we were as a culture in the internet world, that we were at the time. I didn't pursue it. You know what I mean? I just kind of let it fizzle out, like most of the ideas that I came up with. Like I would get real excited. I'm like, I think there was a maturity there too. I'm like, oh, there's work beyond the excitement. And I was like, I wasn't mature enough to push through that.
Yeah.
And so it's on the pile of like great ideas. Same thing with the business, the vinyl business and the t-shirt. I mean, the margins in that stuff are insane. We were selling to like football teams, sticker on the back of your car, like, my kid's number 42 and plays football or whatever. Um, but when it got to that level, it was just like, oh, the excitement's worn off a little bit. Are you going to build this? And I was just like, no, I think I'll go back to something else that's more exciting so I can keep that high. And so that was kind of my path, like, oh, get on the high. Let's go find something else that makes us, gets excited. But Amazon, there was one point where that almost happened with Amazon. I had bought a bunch of stuff, and I took a sick day from teaching to prep it all. And so I built this. It was the biggest shipment I had at the time. And I built this shipment. This was still, I wasn't even using, I was in Seller Central. And I built this shipment. It took me like 2 or 3 hours. And I did something wrong and I lost it all. And I was like, and so I'm like, this is dumb. I'm not, like all these stories I had about, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire overnight and all this stuff. I'm like, this is stupid. It doesn't work. And there was some like tiny little voice for the first time that was just like, just walk away for a few minutes. Like, just step away. And so I stepped away and I was like, just go back, learn from it. Don't do this again. And just start over and list one product at a time until you're done with the shipment. And I did that. And that changed everything for me. Like, it was like, okay, like I can do this. It's going to be hard, or it's not going to be easy all the time. But if you just persevere and you persist through it, you can get through it. Instead of looking at the mountain, like, let's just look at the step in front of you. And so that, I would say, was probably around 2017, 2018, where it was just like, I would say my life changed at that point in terms of like, I can do hard stuff. I just got to take it one step at a time.
Awesome.
Boy, the emoji shirts, I can't even imagine how many eggplants my boys would have
Yeah,
drawn on
yeah,
those. So,
yeah,
and maybe I'm glad you didn't follow through with
yeah,
that.
exactly, exactly.
I'm curious. I think you said it was January of 2019
Mhm.
that you entertained Wholesale for the first time, or for real,
Sure.
put the plan in place.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm always curious what the snapshot looks like, because I think the landscape has changed pretty dramatically over the last 5 years as far as what's available, as far as content and education and whatnot. So you mentioned when you first got started, you caught Gary V put you on the scent. You caught
Mhm.
Reezy.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of his stuff, but there's a big difference between 25-cent Goodwill books and wholesale accounts.
Sure.
So, what did you have as a guide in early 2019 when you decided on wholesale?
I think so. So Larry Labarsky was making content, so I saw him. I don't think Amazon lit guys were on the scene as much or as active on social media back then. I'm trying to remember who the other wholesale sellers were. I know Larry was one that I saw. So I didn't really have anything to go on other than I knew in my heart of hearts there was no secret. Like early on, I thought for sure there was a secret. I was like, these guys know the secret and I don't know the secret. And somewhere in there, I started realizing, like, Eric, you know the secret. It's just picking up the phone, it's doing the hard work, it's figuring it out. Like, there is no, like, magic. I was just convinced that these wholesale accounts were like, I was this dirty person like coming in like, hey guys, I sell on Amazon. Like, I know that's not allowed, but like, please don't be mad at me. Like, I just thought that like there was this big, and it's somewhere in there. I'm like, there is no secret. These guys picked up the phone. They figured it out, and so I think that's what I went into 2019 with. Like, if these guys can figure out, I can figure it out. And I remember the very first time I made a phone call. It's so funny because I was like so confident teaching, and I've always been comfortable public speaking. I picked up a phone call. I saw a truck, and so I Googled the name of the company. It was like, I found a phone number for like the regional vice president of sales for like this massive distributor, whatever. And I'm like, so I called him, and I was just like, hey, we're looking to set up an account, and we kind of sell some stuff on Amazon. And I was just like scared to death. And the guy was like super cool. He was like, we're probably not the right fit for where you're at, but call this company. And so I called this company, and I was just like, hey, I had a name now. Hey, Jim so and so told me to give you a call. So there was a little bit of like, validity. And the guy's like, yeah, come down to our warehouse. Let's talk about it and see what we can do. And that's been one of our main suppliers since day one. But
Nice.
I was so scared. And but but yeah, I just kind of figured, like, I was convinced that, like, you want there to be a secret, because then if you get the secret, you think it's going to be easy. The secret is in the work that you don't want to do. You know what I mean? That's the secret. And so when I went into 2019, that was kind of my mindset. Like, I'm smart enough to figure this out. Let's just do it.
Nice. And you mentioned previously, the traditional model for wholesale is get a warehouse, get some preppers or whatnot. Um, but then you also mentioned, it's just a matter of picking up the phone and actually making that call. So for somebody who wants to add wholesale to their business, is it simply still picking up the phone, or what advice would you give to someone starting today?
So I think what most people try to do is they want to spam, they want to cast a really wide net with a real simple approach. So maybe they'll hire a VA, or they'll send out these blast emails or whatever, and you're going to get some accounts for sure. There are some people that are like, we don't care if you sell this on the moon, just buy our products. You put it on Amazon, you put it wherever you want. So you can get accounts that way. Early on, I heard people like Larry and Scott Needham and others that were doing wholesale saying like how important relationships were. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? Like, how do you build a relationship with someone you don't even know? You know what I mean? And so what I discovered over the years is like what they meant by that is like, I think picking up the phone is going to give you massive opportunities compared to just spamming email addresses that you find on a website or clicking a wholesale inquiry form at the bottom of a website. I just basically what I do now is like if there's an account that I'm interested in, I will see if I want to get a hold of a sales rep. Like, is there somebody that covers my territory or that I can talk to? I don't hide the fact that I sell on Amazon. They're gonna find out. They have a policy already in place. I'm likely not going to change that policy. So I just get it out right away. Hey, we're third-party Amazon sellers. We're in Michigan. We've got a small warehouse. Are you guys working with any e-commerce sellers? Yes, no. And if the answer is no, maybe I'll push back a little bit and just say, like, is there any reason in particular? Or do you think that'll change? Can I follow up in 6 months? But the relationships I have with like sales reps now are like, if I'm going through a catalog and there's something that's close on price, but maybe we need 50 cents off of it to really get to like our, comfortable margins. So I can literally just text my rep and I'll be like, hey, Dave, how much wiggle room do you guys have on item number 6145? And he'll be like, hey, I can get you down to 749. I'm like, sweet, that works for me. Thank you. We'll order, 12 cases or whatever. One of the things that once you get to a real person, I'll ask them, I'll say like, we talk, we tell them what we do. They decide they're going to send us over their price list or put us on their website or whatever they're going to do. And then I'll say like, hey, here's what we do. We go through your whole catalog and we look for products that meet our margins, and, sales velocity and kind of our criteria. If there's something that's close, can I ask you, can I send you over that list too and see if you guys have any room? And every time they're like, oh, absolutely. You know what I mean? So like, we'll go through and like, hey, this is our buy list. And then the second thing we'll do is like, this is the stuff we're close on. This is where we need to be. Can you get us there? Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But talking to a real sales rep who wants to sell products, who has either commission that they want to sell, make, or has goals, quarterly sales goals, you know what I mean? Like talking to an incentive, I don't know if incentivized employee is the right word, but like talking to someone who has an incentive to sell you product is massive. And I think one of the key things, what we've always tried to do is I always try to spend money, no questions asked, no discounts asked. I always try to spend money immediately. Like I want them to know I'm not here to waste your time. I'm not just kicking the tires. Like I want to work with you. So we will always try to find products that we can put a decent PO together pretty quickly, where they go like, oh, okay, this guy's different. You know what I mean? And we've had situations where there's a company out of Chicago that we had an account with, and I was going to their warehouse. I was going to Chicago for something, and I'm like, hey, can I stop in and meet you and check out your showroom? And he's like, yeah, come on in. So went to their showroom, scanned tons and tons and tons of different stuff, came back to him like, hey, here's what I want to order. And the order was like, I don't know, it was like $10,000 worth of stuff. And he's like, are you on my emails? And I was like, yeah, I think I get your emails. And he's like, let me check. He pulled it up. He's like, oh, you don't get the real emails. You get the e-commerce seller emails. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, here, let me move you into this other, list of emails. And so that made me realize right there, like, because I was, like he saw that I was legit, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to spend money here. I want to make money. I want you to make money. Like, so all that to say, like today, as uncomfortable as it is for some people, I think just picking up the phone and saying like, hey, do you have a sales rep that covers Ohio? And if they do, then just like, hey, Joe, I'm we had a warehouse in Ohio and small team of employees. We sell products third party on Amazon. We're just looking to see if we can work with you. If they say yes, great. If not, totally get it, man. completely understand. Amazon sellers have caused a lot of headaches for a lot of distributors and suppliers. So I totally get it.
Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Rasick has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show.
So
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the task too, is to make up for a questionable reputation that the people before you have. But we've heard similar things. Is the faster you can get to the actual money that they'll be drawing commission from I mean, what a great tactic, to say, okay, here's my order. Here's what your commission on a PO would have been if I could get a little more. Like
Sure.
that's a great tactic. I love
and that was not my idea. That was there was a podcast. I think it was Scott Needham's Smartest Seller podcast where he and Larry Labarsky were talking, and that was one of their strategies. And I'm like, that's genius. Kind of like you get to decide. I'm gonna place an order. You get to decide how much I'm spending at your company. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yeah, it's a brilliant. I think it's a brilliant tactic. But having that relationship, relationship now where I have a real person that I'm connecting with who has real knowledge of the inside of, of their company, knows what they can move on price wise, knows how much margin they have on these products. That's what I think today's wholesale seller really needs to focus. You could build out a system where you just spray and pray and just, you spam 10,000 accounts, and sure, like just the volume of numbers, you might get lucky and get some accounts that have profitable products. But that's been the best thing for us is talking to real employees, real sales reps, real customer service reps, real buyers too. Like one of our, like if we find stuff, like maybe they carry this brand, but they don't carry this particular product. And so I'll just send an email to like one of the buyers. I'm like, hey, do you guys have access to, to this? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, what do I got to do to tell me, I'd like to order some, what price do I need? So getting beyond the email and getting to know people and talk to people, I think is the key in today's wholesale landscape.
You mentioned people picking up the phone. It is uncomfortable. I recently co-hosted a workshop, and we call the damn leads. And invited 130 people. 3 showed up.
Yeah.
And out of those 3, 2 would, and the whole point was, let's make calls in front of each other on Zoom, which yes, it's going to add an element of uncomfortability,
Sure.
But then we can all say, hey, here's what was good. Here's maybe what needs a little bit of work. Now only 2 out of the 3 people who showed up would make a call. However, the amount of growth that one person had from their first call to their second call was amazing.
Yeah.
They got comfortable a little bit more. They took the feedback immediately. And I guarantee, I'll bet money she gets an account from that second call she made.
Yeah. I think early on, I just thought, like I had to lie, or not lie, but mislead about Amazon. And I felt like we were doing something wrong, or like I was is there something dirty about Amazon sellers? And the reality is, like, a lot of these distributors need Amazon sellers, like, and brands, they want, some of them want and need Amazon sellers. They're not naive to the fact that a crap ton of stuff sells on Amazon. Like they'd be almost stupid to not be like, I don't know if I want you selling it, but I need somebody to be selling this on the world's largest marketplace. Like, So once I got that out of my head that I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm actually potentially doing something good, a service that they may need. Um, and the other thing is like, uh, we've landed some brand exclusives, which at some point, if you want to talk about that, that's not all it's cracked up to be either. But I thought that was like, oh, this is like the golden goose, like, and it ended up being a lot of work and expensive. But like calling them up and be like, hey, here's what we do. We saw on Amazon. I noticed you're in Michigan too. You guys have anybody taking care of your Amazon stuff? And they're like, no, we tried it. The last company we did flaked on us or whatever, So like, getting that out of your head that you're doing something wrong and simplifying it to just be like, hey, we're an e-commerce company. And I know other people. I've thought about this because I was watching some of Corey's content recently, and he tells them, that he's a retailer, and I was just like, eventually the Amazon conversation is going to come up. They're going to Google your address, they're going to figure out, and so I would rather just lead with the honesty so it doesn't come across as me being misleading. But I also get don't. If they don't ask, I'll answer whatever questions they ask. I'll just, I totally get that approach too. So, but yeah, it's you're not doing anything wrong. You're providing a service if it's something, a service that they need, and they likely they've had internal discussions on what their Amazon policy is, their reseller, their e-commerce policy is. You're not, they've already decided yes or no. And so you just got to find out if it's yes or no.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's been my opinion, my experience, I guess.
Yeah. We've talked about how you've done private label too. So I want to shift a little bit. You said something earlier that I found really interesting. You said that once you start to look for it, you find gaps in the Amazon catalog, which I think to a lot of people, especially if they pay any attention at all, they're like, well, there's more than 1 billion products on the US marketplace. How can you find a gap in the Amazon catalog? Can you talk a little bit about how you can do that, and how that relates to you building a private label business?
Yeah. So the two things come to mind. The first gap is, and I started an Amazon community a couple years ago, and we were having experts in different areas of Amazon come on, and we would interview them, very similar to this, for our community. And I had who did I have? Kevin, or no, not Kevin. Tim. Is it Tim Jordan? Is he the?
Yeah.
He's he used to be with Helium 10, and he's the private label keyword guru. Yeah. So when Tim started explaining how keywords worked and how Amazon, the algorithm worked, and how important titles and bullet points were. So first of all, we started seeing a number of listings on Amazon where like everything about this listing is awful. The images are awful. The terrible, none of their keywords describe their product at all. They're like, serving size, a quarter ounce, fresh, hand packed or whatever. I'm like, well, nobody's searching for hand packed or quarter inch, so I started seeing like all these bad listings where like, oh, there's opportunity here either for brand outreach or to come in and swoop up the sales, or pretend, like to come in and go like, hey, there's somebody already doing this, but like coming in right next to it and go like, look at this is a lot better. And that, our very first private label product, that's exactly what we did. We found this little niche, kind of a gag gifts product, and the people in the space were they were awful Amazon sellers in terms of like their listing and their images and stuff like that. And so we're like, they had the name of their distributor right on the packaging, and we're like, hey, what would it cost for us to get our brand of this, and they're like, told us the price, and we're like, there's crazy margin in this, and we saw the number of units that they were doing a month, we're like, well, all we got to do is just do it better than they did. So we hired somebody to create gallery images for us. We got brand registered. We created A+ content. We used our knowledge of that I learned from Tim about keywords and, copy of your bullet points. And so we just made a better listing and quickly just took off. You know what I mean? So now people are coming along and they're like, that product side by side on my product. And I was like, well, this one clearly just looks better, tells a better story. So I think that's one way you can find opportunities is as you're doing your wholesale research, you're doing your arbitrage research, and you start to see like, boy, this space is pretty ugly in terms of how they do things. And I think you can find gaps that way. The other ways you can find gaps is like one of our suppliers is like a pet. They're primarily in the pet and farm space. So as we're looking at, you're basically looking through their catalog, you're comparing prices, and you're seeing like, holy smokes, like this product sells 70,000 times a month, but I can't make any money at their prices. And you're like, man, and this is, let's say it's like a wound care spray for dogs or for hot spots for like dogs or cats, like, and you're like, so you're scrolling through and you're like, okay. Another one, for example, well, let's finish this one. You're like, man, wound care spray for dogs and cats sells like crazy. I mean, like tens of thousands of units a month. Like, what other pets do people have? They've got hedgehogs, they've got ferrets, they've got lizards and reptiles and snakes, and they've got, you know what I mean? And so now your brain starts going like, clearly there's a massive demand for wound care for reptile or for mammal, pets. Like, are there any gaps? And so that's another space where we've started to kind of look for opportunities there where it's like, it's already out there. It's just the application is, like you're just expanding, like, what else does this apply to? Is there more opportunity in this space to just take the same product, package it a little differently, and just gear it towards the niche pet, dogs and cats, everybody has those, but what about the salamander, the bearded dragon community or whatever? I mean, I don't know, that's kind of one example of how we've started to kind of look for gaps, look for categories that have really bad listings that are selling pretty well, and you can use tools like Keepa to find those gaps too. You know what I mean? Like look for listings that only have a couple images, categories that only have a couple listings where they've got good reviews and good sales velocity. And so you're looking at all these brands that have crappy listings. You're like, can I get in this space? Is there enough margin for me to kind of launch my own brand in this space? So that's kind of that's kind of how we found our first private label product. And the one that we're in the development of launching is kind of in that same place where like product's already out there, but the application is just different from what's, where the majority of the sales are coming from is just different. We're gonna sell the exact same formula, the exact same product. We're just gonna kind of market it towards a different niche, pet owner.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, there's private label seems to be one of those places that's always the end goal where Amazon sellers want to go, because of the exitability, if that's a word,
sure.
and things like that. And of course, there's no shortage of gurus. There's no shortage of courses. Is there maybe one or two things that you would tell someone who wants to get into PL that maybe course creators don't talk about?
One of the things, it takes way longer than you think it's going to take. Like, everything just takes, especially if you're trying to get something manufactured overseas, like the whole process takes, a long time. By the time you get your graphic designer to get, your drafts of your A+ content, like that takes 4 weeks, and like the whole thing takes a long time. I would say the one thing, and maybe they do tell you this, I haven't really gone into any formal private label courses. I would say a lot of private label products probably don't succeed, even though you've got all the data, you've got all the keywords. Like there's no guarantee. And I've heard a lot of people that say their first product or two failed. It's not a failure in a sense of like they learned a ton, they just didn't make as much money as they thought they were going to. So, and it's slow, like especially if you're trying to enter a space that has, you know, other products that have tons and tons and tons of reviews. Like you're entering a race where you're like a way behind. You know what I mean? And it just takes time. I would say for our first private label products, like it was doing okay. I would say it took um, maybe a year and a half, 2 years before it really started to like, you know, not skyrocket, but we sell like 600 units a month. We've got 800 and something reviews now. But it just took a little while for that, you know, it's a slow momentum. So in my experience, and I'm not a private label guru or expert at all, I know enough to have conversations and I know enough to be dangerous. Um, but it's just we just helped another brand launch. We kind of acted as an agency for a brand to launch in the leg cramp space, and its pricing is great. Gallery images, A plus content's beautiful, better than the competitors, but got 29 reviews compared to people that have 20,000 reviews in this space. So it's just for me, it's a slow for the products that we've got into. It's been a slow burn. It takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
But we're not approaching it from like the course guys are going to teach you like, you know, we you don't even know what product you're going to sell. We're going to tell you what the keyword data is telling you to sell. And we've never really done it that way. So maybe that way is different. But the way we've done it, like the pet brand, like we launched a pet brand called Pasture Paws. That all originated because we found a pet distributor down the road, called them up and said, hey, can we sell your products on Amazon? Like you can sell whatever you want. You can private label your own stuff if you want to or whatever. And we're like, all right, well, let's do that because I don't want you yanking this out from underneath me if we do well with it. So we're like, okay, let's figure out how to launch a pet brand. I mean, literally from like name to, you know, design, like it was like, let's just start it. Chat GPT, generate 50 pet treat dog chew brands that give a feel of being good for you or all natural or whatever. It's just like, all right, let's see what you got, you know, and like narrowed it down, finally settled on one. It's called Pasture Paws. This is one of our pouches here. And then, all right, 99 Designs, like put up a campaign, like somebody make a logo for me, you know, 100 logos come in, narrowed it down to 2 or 3 that we really liked. Went on PickFu, said, you guys tell us which one you like better. One over, you know, Night and Day was more popular than the others. Like, okay, I guess we got a logo now, you know. All right, we got to put these in pouches. Pouch, you know, food pouch manufacturer US, or, you know, found a company, we got a quote and just kind of figured it out all along the way. Made some big mistakes, expensive, like spent more money than we needed to in some certain areas, but it's all tuition payments to Amazon University. But that's doing pretty well. But again, it's like it's slow. We're trying to fight upstream, fight the algorithm, like crawl our way closer and closer to the guys that have, you know, that are way up there. And but it's been fun. I really enjoy it. I enjoy doing that more so than like trying to build somebody else's brand or, you know, just selling products for other people, which is fine too. If you're making good money on it, that's fun. But building out the brand has been more rewarding, I think.
So for the listeners that love the idea of private label, but maybe haven't gotten started yet or just getting started, uh, picking products. It sounds like you've had you can approach private label. I can make an argument that you approach it from two different directions, either
Yeah.
from Amazon. We talked about finding the gaps
Mhm.
within the catalog itself, and then you've also had inventions of your own that could be brought to Amazon.
Mhm.
Which is easier? Which direction would you suggest for the beginner?
If you're coming new, uh, like if you can find, I'll give you an example. We found a company that was selling on Amazon. One of the gaps we found was like we had a supplier that had licorice and like gourmet licorice, not like Twizzlers or whatever, but kind of gourmet licorice. And so we kind of started looking out there. They're like, we can sell it to you with our brand, or you can private label it. We got kind of looking around, and we're like, boy, the private labelers in this luxury, or not luxury, but like, more. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's
The gourmet or
gourmet,
boutique?
yeah, like a little bit more gourmet. They're just not doing a very good job. And so, but we could see based upon the tools we have available, like, boy, this one's selling 150 units a month. This one's selling, this flavor is selling this a month. And so, like, we already kind of we knew that people were buying licorice. We knew about how many units we could estimate, we could sell. We knew what we could do to improve, um, to stand out better than the people that are in that space. And so, for me, I like that because there's already kind of proof of concept. We know that gourmet liquor sells on Amazon. We just got to try to do it better than other people. The keyword approach, especially if you're coming at it from a like weird, we don't know exactly what we're going to sell. We just know that Amazon is, tons of people are searching for this phrase. Like you've got to make sure you get it right. That when you pick that product, like I always go back to the Helium 10 Project X series. I don't know if you guys ever watched that. Project Helium 10, Tim Jordan and the other content creator for Helium 10, can't remember his name, but they made a series where they basically sat down like, we're going to walk you guys through A to Z. We have no idea what we're going to sell. They settled on some keywords like Gothic decor, and the product that they launched was uh, it was a bookshelf that it was shaped like a coffin. And so, the risk there is that what you launched is what they were really looking for. You know what I mean? It's like it could be, and it could do really well, and they succeeded at it. But there's a chance, I think, that what you think they're looking for when they search for these phrases, there's a chance to be like, no, 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 that's not really what we meant. So I guess that's those are my thoughts when it comes to the people that are launching from the keyword space. There's probably more upside, but there is that risk that, and then the other part of it too is like if you found that keyword, a bunch of other people found that keyword too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We bought a brand from a friend that is getting out of the Amazon space and the kitchen category, and when they launched, they were early. They kind of came up with the idea using the keyword model, but now we sell a recipe box that has a slot at the top where you put your phone, so you can kind of watch tutorial videos or whatever. And they were one of the first people in that space. But now, there's a lot of people that are selling the same product. So you go that route, you're probably going to get some competitors that jump on there. Unfortunately, they've got the Amazon Choice badge and way more reviews than any of those other people do, so it's still selling okay. But it goes back to that whole thing with gold mining. Like as soon as somebody strikes gold, everybody's like, where's the gold? Like
Yeah.
or somebody catches a fish, they're like, where's the honey hole? So
Yeah. So we can't this time of year. Anytime we get somebody on the show who's in the weeds like we are, uh, we can't end the show without talking about the changes going on with Amazon. Kind of generalize. You could pick pick your most hated or the most impactful, but how are the changes Amazon's making affecting your operation?
The biggest challenge for us as a small, so most of our shipments are 2 to 8 pallets. Like, we're a small wholesale seller, and the placement fees, if you're selling arbitrage and you're doing small parcel, like, that's pretty simple to break up into 6 boxes and ship to 6 different fulfillment centers. Um, you When you start trying to ship up pallets, it gets really expensive because you're paying freight charges for all, for that split. And so the placement fees and the freight fee increases are probably the most challenging thing that we've seen in the small wholesale seller space. We basically just have to, it's basically pick your poison, split your shipments and pay 6 times the freight, or keep your shipments together and pay placement fees. So we just kind of expect to pay 50 cents a unit, just about on everything we sell. And that's definitely impacted us. I can't remember what the number was. We sent probably our biggest shipment ever, 18, 19 pallets. I can't remember what it was. And we had, between placement fees and freight, it was like $1,800 or something like that. So just right off the top, it was just like, boom, there's there's almost $2,000, that where previously it might have been, I don't know, $400 or $500 in freight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's yeah, it's real. A lot of people, I'm hearing more and more people that are leaving Amazon and moving to Walmart. I know 2 people that are, kind of in the influencer space, or they share a lot of their stuff on social media, and they're like, we've we've broken up with Amazon. We've got a new boo, and it's Walmart, and for the most part, it's treating them pretty good. So, but yeah, I would say the placement fee, and then when James McConnell showed that Amazon is basically lying, that they're not doing what they're, I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but he basically tracked their shipment. Basically, what Amazon was saying, like, hey, we're trying to distribute products across our network more efficiently. And so he tracked some shipments from the Dallas area, and he's like, no, they're not doing that at all. They're charging you for like they're doing that, but in reality, they're shipping them to New York or wherever, and then it's the same exact way they were doing it previously. They've just, so that's been the most challenging, not being able to get a human being that can look at your problem sensibly has been really, really challenging. We had a lot of units that were mislabeled as or misidentified as expired. Clear indication on the packaging that these were nowhere near expiration. No expiration. Sent pictures, sent invoices, asked for bin checks. Could not get any human being to, literally like just look at this box and go like, oh yeah, this is 2025. Like, it's very clear, here's the date right on the side of the packaging, and just maddening. We had another product we were selling that was like a decoy for people that have gardens, plastic decoy. Got misidentified as a pesticide, shut down. There you go. So if anybody needs a plastic falcon, we got several hundred of them in the back room that we can make you a good deal on.
Interesting. Couldn't get that one fixed at all, huh?
Could not get that fixed for the life of us. And it could be too, like, I have a very short perseverance, when it comes to like nonsense. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? It's like, so I'll try a couple times, maybe I'll hand it off to an employee, but at some point I'm like, I just don't, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't care. I guess the dollar figure has never been so big that I'm like, well, I don't have any choice but to care. You know what I mean? I just kind of, I hate Seller Central tasks. I just hate dealing with seller support. So I usually outsource that to somebody else, or I just take a loss.
Yeah.
So.
We always like to ask. Chris and I are readers. We like quotes, things like that. Are there any books or podcasts or blog posts that you've read or listened to in the past 90 days that have had an impact on you?
Yeah. So I stumbled across a guy named Jim Fortin recently. And I really enjoy kind of learning about I don't know if psychology is the right word, but kind of the unconscious world, the limiting beliefs, and the kind of the ingrained programming and stuff like that that we have about ourselves, and kind of like seeing how that plays out in my own life. And so there's a gentleman that created a series called basically like your external world kind of reveals your internal unconscious beliefs about yourself. So that really spoke to me. Again, his name is Jim Fortin. And he's just got these little 30-minute topic audio YouTube podcasts that I really enjoy listening to. I listen to Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian, but he has some really deep, fun conversations with real people. And so that's become one of my favorite go-to podcasts. I'm trying to think about books. I'm really intrigued by it's so funny because if you had asked me like 10 years ago, these ideas of like creating your own destiny or manifesting or I would have been like, this is like new age, BS. But the more I read about that kind of stuff, I really enjoy Joe Dispenza, like different guys that just kind of talk about kind of I don't know, spiritual, not from a religious side, but like a spiritual side of of the parts that we don't fully understand about what's possible and what we can create. That's the kind of stuff that I'm drawn to right now. That stuff, I enjoy that and intrigues me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's perfect.
Sure.
Where can people go? They want to learn more about you. They want to follow you on social media. Where would you like people to go and do that?
I think for now, the easiest thing to do is just on Instagram, just at the Reselling Teacher. We're getting ready to put out some free training and content, but that's not finalized enough to kind of point anybody there. So I think in the meantime, if you're interested in anything I said, at the Reselling Teacher on Instagram, and then at some point we'll roll out like how to kind of get involved in the community we're trying to build. And yeah.
Perfect. And we'll get all that down in the show notes as well,
sure.
so they can go click on it and everything. So,
All right. So, quote of the week time, Chris?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I picked one out. I think this one fits pretty well with the show, considering Eric's growth through the Amazon ecosystem. It's from one of our favorites, Benjamin Franklin. He says, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning."
I like that. I love Benjamin Franklin. He was such a weirdo, in his time, taking air baths and all that kind of stuff. I think he would have been a heck of a lot of fun to hang out with.
He would have been canceled so fast if he was around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I do think it's so true though. Like you just have to, like, there are days when I show up here and I don't want to be here, and I'm like, just swing the axe once today. Just, you know what I mean? Like just take a swing today. And sometimes that swing is as little as like I just got the daily merchant fulfilled stuff or the Walmart shipments out. Like, but like just show up and take a swing every day. And then before you know it, you look back, you're like, we took a chunk out of this over time. So I like that quote.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, thanks so much for hanging out with us, man. I really appreciate you kind of weaving with us into all the different things that you've done on Amazon and learning a little bit about this. Kind of open up my eyes to a couple of things that I'm going to look a little deeper into. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
All right, everybody. That's the pod. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.